My name is Nick Everdell. I'm a consultant with Spivey Consulting, and formerly I was Director of Enrollment at Yale Law School for 2 years, and prior to that I was Associate Director of Admissions at Columbia Law School. Today I'll be reviewing 2 applications submitted to Yale, trying to give you some sense of what they're looking for at Yale. I'll be reviewing these and giving my opinion on what the decision should have been. Now, there is a disclaimer here, and that is because of Yale's admissions system and how they review files. And you can learn more about that in my other YouTube videos. However, I would like to point out that Yale's system is where these applications are first reviewed by the Dean of Admissions, who then decides which ones go for faculty review. And the thing about faculty review is that every professor sort of has a different opinion on what makes a strong Yale student. So in my position at Yale, when applications would come back from faculty review, I would look at them and be, frankly, quite surprised by how different professors had different opinions on these applications. Each application would get read by 3 professors, and they would vote on them, either assigning them a 4, a 3, or a 2, 4 being their favorites, 2 being their least favorites of the ones they reviewed. And the number of files that came back voted on as a 4 by one professor, a 3 by another professor, and a 2 by another professor was quite shocking. And it really told you the degree to which Yale professors really have different feelings on what makes a good Yale student. And to a certain degree, I think that's a good thing. This isn't a criticism at all. I think it allows for a certain diversity of the class and just interesting people who are there for interesting reasons. But that being said, I do say that the takeaway for getting into Yale, beyond obviously these are all very, very strong applicants, is that luck does play a role, and a lot depends on who the professors are that are going to read your file. So with that caveat, I'm going to talk about a couple files, give my opinion, but who knows, what the final decision would have been and how different that may have been from my opinion, simply because of how the Yale process works. So I'll start reviewing this file. Immediately, I go through all the basics, the regular application. As I go through, I see it's a white male who's, been out of college for a few years, grew up in the Northeast, or lives in the Northeast, and attended a very elite undergraduate institution where he received a 3.77 GPA and actually grew up in California. His academics are very strong, and so I go through all the basics, and a lot of it I just skim through, to be perfectly honest, as an applicant, because it's just information that we just need to know, but doesn't really play a role in decision making. So then immediately I'll go to the resume, because usually in the essays he's talking about things in the resume, so the resume gives me a sense of what he's doing and helps me understand the essays a little bit better. The resume tell me that he's been out for 3 years, out from undergrad, and he's been doing some very interesting work for a consulting company that really works on international development. And that's certainly, certainly a striking thing if you're reading a Yale application, to see that kind of work, sort of the impact that he's had on doing that. While in undergrad, he had decent softs and decent extracurriculars, and he speaks another language. So all these things are positive there. I'm not going to sit here and say they jump out in terms of him standing out and being incredible. It's not a Rhodes Scholarship or anything like that, but it's all certainly very positive, and I certainly see this as somebody who's a strong applicant. Then I get to the essays and I start reading the personal statement first, and what stands out to me, it's very well written, and it's a good story that really holds my interest, and that stands out to me. And it's also, he's talking about being in another country and helping his client work in different development issues for that country, and also some of the serious issues that they face. Finding this fine line between what his client needs and sort of the greater social good, and having to walk that line, and also realizing that he could walk that line much better as a lawyer, and so that strong explanation of why he wants to be a lawyer is definitely part of that, and stands out as well. Then I read the 250-word essay, which is nice because it's short. And I think the thing that stood out for me most about the 250-word essay was, once again, he places himself in a foreign country, one that your typical person reading the file may be less familiar with. And he makes a really interesting point about how international aid and sort of the good intentions can actually have unintended consequences. So it's a really interesting point of view, that we don't see very often. So that stands out well. Then I'll read the letters of recommendation. We don't have a letter of recommendation here. I can tell you that for Yale, they're tremendously important. So I would have read those and spent a lot of time sort of thinking about those and what people say about him in terms of that. and then, just thinking about it. The issue, though, is this is a very strong application. It's a strong person. I can certainly see that a number of professors reading this, many of the professors reading this, would be very impressed and might be inclined to admit, or at least give them a 4. Probably the issue that stands out for me a little bit, though, is the GPA. Even though it's from an elite institution, it's a 3.77, and just knowing the degree to which Yale emphasizes academic excellence. Obviously, he's academically excellent, but when you're talking about Yale, you're talking about, a lot of applicants who are 3.8s, 3.9s above a 4.0. And so the 3.7 just might not be enough to cut it, especially in the case, of a white male. And so in the end, it's tough to do, and I could see this applicant getting into many, many different schools based on the strength of his application, which is overall very strong. But in Yale's case, that GPA just might not be enough. Now, there's still that caveat, and he's got enough going for him where I could certainly see if he gets the right faculty member sort of saying, the GPA is just not that important here. I think this person is very, very strong. Saying, I think I can ignore that GPA because of everything else and admit him. But I'm going to hedge my bets on this one and think that he probably was not admitted to Yale.
So this applicant was admitted, actually.
All right. So good for him, and congratulations. That's well done. So the second applicant is an interesting applicant. He's got a 3.97 GPA, and as I go through the file, so that's sort of what I'll see first. So 3.97 GPA. He's also got a 175 LSAT. So the numbers are incredibly strong. There's no question on that. He's a white male, so we see that. And the other interesting thing about his application that we see immediately is that he went to a fairly well-known, fairly conservative Christian school, and that jumps out at me. The problem with it is the question is sort of the degree to which that school is respected by Yale. That being said, Yale emphasizes ideological diversity. Most law schools are certainly pretty liberal places, at least the student body is, but Yale really wants to be a place where there's healthy debate between different ideologies. So the fact that he comes from a very conservative institution for undergrad tells me that might be extremely appealing to him. That plus the 3.97 GPA. He is still a student there, and that could be a little bit of a downside. However, he's done a lot of great work, and this is the point where I go to the resume. He's done a lot of leadership positions in student government at this institution. So I review that, and then I go hit the essays again. And I read the first essay. It's well written. I think he slightly missed the point of the personal statement. It's almost more of a diversity statement in terms of sort of talking about his family and how that led him in the direction he is. So it's almost a diversity statement in terms of a personal statement. I think he slightly missed the point. I think he's a little too long on it, but it's still well written. So I don't see it as completely disqualifying for him. And then I'll go to the 250-word essay, and 250-word essay is a good topic, but he's not really a character in it. And that's one of my things about the 250-word essay, where you need to pick an issue, you need to make an argument, you need to make a discussion. But in the process of doing that, we need to know why you picked the topic, and also why you have the authority to speak on it. And he doesn't quite do that with this essay. He's talking about how somebody who wants to make charity donations can make educated decisions about what kind of charities to donate to or to work for. It's a sort of just clear argument about that, but I don't really get an understanding of him. I think one of the most important things to remember about an application is that everything in the application needs to tell the admissions committee something about you. And so we don't quite get that with this 250-word essay. In the end, taking all these considerations together, there are issues in this application. However, given the high GPA, given the high LSAT, and given the fact that he has the potential to improve Yale's ideological diversity, I think if in front of the right professors, he might be admitted. So my vote would be to admit him. That being said, once again, I understand how readers who are reading these essays might just not think they're quite there enough for Yale. This would be sort of an interesting question where if you're talking as an admissions officer who's thinking very seriously about these things, crafting a class, versus a faculty reader who's really reading based on, do they find this person interesting? Is this somebody they want to have a beer with? That's one of the quotes I'd always get from a faculty professor when making a decision on a file is this somebody I want to have a beer with? And there's the rub, and that's sort of the issue with Yale. As an admissions officer, I might be voting to admit this person, However, a faculty reader might decide, this isn't really somebody I want to have a beer with, and might decide to deny. So while my vote would be to admit for this person, I could completely understand, once again, if they get the wrong faculty readers, that they would choose to deny this person. So in the end, with that caveat, once again, I'm going to guess this person was admitted, though I completely understand if they were not.
So this applicant was denied.
It makes sense to me. And honestly, with both of these applications, it makes perfect sense to me because of Yale's unique system in terms of making decisions. So I was wrong, but I understand it very well. So the fact that I wasn't able to predict, as somebody who actually worked there, really tells you how idiosyncratic Yale is, and also how unpredictable it is. And I've found that while I worked there in the admissions office, as I said, the number of files that were 432, and also as a consultant, where I've had clients get into Yale where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, and clients who didn't, or was like, interesting. Yale's idiosyncratic, and I think all I can say is shoot your shot, because you never know. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. If you want more information, please review more of our YouTube videos on the Spivey Consulting channel. And thank you very much for your time.